Good evening. Welcome to the Mount Olive Township Council meeting, a workshop session for September 5th, 2017. If you would please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for a moment of silence for all the men and women that serve and protect us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Michelle, would you read the Open Public Meetings Act, please?
Yes. According to the Open Public Meetings Act, adequate notice of this meeting has been given to the Daily Record. Notice has been posted in the Municipal Building, 204 Flanders Drakestown Road, Bud Lake, New Jersey, and notices were sent to those requesting the same.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Amianda?
Here.
Mr. Ferrante?
Here.
Mrs. Labow?
Here.
Mr. Mania?
Here.
Mr. Stewart?
Here.
Mr. Roman?
Here.
Mr. Nicastro?
Here. We have two presentations that we're going to move down a little bit till a couple of them arrive. We're going to move on to discussion. We have three items for discussion. The first is the draft resolution establishing policy for sewers in Old Flanders. Bob?
As I indicated at the last meeting, what I tried to do is to capture the discussion you've had for the last 2 months since I've been here relative to the Flanders sewers, and to put it in one resolution so that 2 years from now, when actually they're under construction and you start running issues as to how you're financed, et cetera, you have a basis to go back and review what you decided. So let me run quickly through it, and I know this sounds childish, but I can assure you, in the future, this may be very important to you because there will be questions raised as you get into this project that it'd be good that you can say, no, that's what we originally told you we were going to do in 2017. So we start off by saying, number one, that you have determined that there is a public health need for sanitary sewers on Park Avenue and Main Street. Number two, that the best long-term interest in the municipality is to use the gravity sewer system rather than the low-pressure system. Item three, that you're going to use our financial model, which parallels that model used in the Bud Lake system, which basically has three component parts. One, the property owners will be charged an assessment based upon the benefit conferred on the property. Two, the township's current fund, property tax fund, will pay a portion of that cost, which is above the assessment cost for the most cost-effective system. In other words, that would be designed the way we talked last time, where you look at the most cost-effective system would have been the pressure system, and you look at that delta between the assessment and what the cost is, that's the amount that's going to be picked up by taxes. And number three, that the sewer utility will basically pay the remainder in order to give it the capability of then selling that sewer capacity to future users. So the sewer utility will basically own the expansion. Same actual process that was used in the Bud Lake system, where the sewer utility ended up holding, I believe, about 300 EDUs that could be used in the future. Number four, the sanitary sewer system will put the pipes in the street and will stub out to a clean out on the property line. The property owner will be responsible to connect to the system. The property owner will be responsible for closing out their existing septic system. Same process used in Bud Lake. If in fact the property, because of elevation differences, it is necessary to install a pump system on the property, the township will install that pump system as a part of the sewer system. The property owner won't have to do that. But the property owner still will have to go back and disconnect their, and close out their existing septic system. I have down here that you give them, yes, Colin.
You want us to ask questions at the
Please,
appropriate
go ahead.
time? For the, you're talking about if there's a elevation issue, we have to put in that system. Is that a grinder pump?
That would be a grinder pump.
Grinder pump. Now, we did have an issue when we were finished with the Bud Lake sewer system at the end. Some people were thinking that the property owners were going to take over ownership of those grinder pumps and maintain them, and that really was not a good idea. So we passed, I think, an ordinance or resolution at the time saying, no, the town will always have ownership of them and will repair them. So I wanted to know, can we add that to the resolution at this time to make it perfectly clear?
That's why it's in front of you. We can amend this, and I don't necessarily think that you have to adopt this tonight. We can do it next meeting, just we can amend that. So you want to basically indicate the grinder pumps to be the township responsibility.
Right, well, the township will maintain ownership of them throughout, and will be responsible for any repairs or whatever. That's how we do it now with the Bud Lake sewer system. We
Correct.
made sure that was carried over, so I wanted the same policy.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay. Item 5, what we outline here is that I use 12 months. Once the sewer system is in place, we'll get the property owner 12 months. I think they extended that 12 to 18 on the Bud Lake. I use 12 as a starting point. You can always amend that, but there will be a window of opportunity that the property owner will be given that they have to connect to the system. And that's something, I put 12 in here, we can change it and make whatever you want. And number 6, it's the intention to allow the property owner to pay that sewer assessment. And I have in here over 15 years. We will know the actual term when you go out and borrow the money, because the term will be basically the life of the bonds. And the interest rate that they pay by law is the interest rate that you pay on the bonds. For instance, if you floated those bonds today, you'd probably get about 2% on that, 2 to 2.5%. So that's what the property owner would pay. Then the last item of in here, then there's actually a statement here, just for the record, everyone understand. The amount that to be assessed to the individual property owner cannot exceed the value for that sewer pump or that sewer system to the property, i.e., the whole concept of the local benefit conferred is that if the land value was $75,000 a lot beforehand, and it's now determined by the assessment to be $95,000, you can't charge more than $20,000. You are capped in terms of that increase. I've also put in here that you would handle this the same way the Bud Lake system was, where the Bud Lake system discounted the increase by about 25% to come down to their final number. And that same concept, the numbers may change, but the same concept will apply here to the Bud Lakes that used in the Bud Lake system once you know the final numbers. Then the last part I have in here is that the local assessment, you can either appoint a board of commissioners, which is what they did in '97, or the local assessor can do it. What I'm recommending to you is that you use the local assessor assisted by a qualified MIA assessor to come up with that assessment value. Since there's only 35 properties and not 1,000 plus, which was in the Bud Lake system, it probably can be handled internally. Now, I think those are the key points. Open for discussion of other issues that council may have on that. Again, I think it's to your advantage to make this as simple but yet as complete as possible. This will also serve as the basis of information going out to the affected property owners, so it's important that you have your thoughts in one spot.
Mr. Roman?
Bob, if I remember during our last discussion, we were pretty much moving forward because we needed some concrete numbers, and that was pretty much the authorization that this body gave. Am I to understand that this resolution does not bind us to go ahead with the project if we, at a later date when these numbers come in, we find them to be unpalatable?
Yes, you can always undo it.
Okay. Now, by undoing it, we would have to pass another resolution to cancel it.
Obviously, if you decide to back out from it and not do the construction, the assessments, that is undoing it de facto, even though it may be technically be still on the books.
So then why do we need this resolution instead of just moving forward and collect and having the administration get us information, engineering plans?
Because you won't have that information for probably a year. We're now looking at construction in 19. There will be, before you at your next meeting, a revised engineering contract. That they'll do the engineering probably this winter, and we'll have to go to DEP. You have to go to DEP for your permits next spring. So I doubt you'll be in a position to move on this before this time next year, all other things being equal. And that's assuming that there's no hitch in the permit process, just the way It takes time.
I assume this is the same process that we followed previously when we were doing other.
Correct, and the same thing goes back to what not you did, your predecessors did. In '95, they basically issued a similar type of document. It was a green book, which outlined all these issues in detail and told the property owners, here's what we're doing. And what I would anticipate from your standpoint, the best approach would be, once we've adopted this, put it in, it may be appropriate to have a public meeting with everybody affected and bring them in early on and say, here's the program. Just to stop the rumors, just to stop all the other stuff, lay it out early on.
Now, what would happen if at least half of those connected decided to delay connection and go right up to the 12 months? Is that going to hamper the system?
You're going to be borrowing the total amount, okay? So from a cash flow standpoint, you'll have already committed to the cash. The fact that they haven't done it to the 12th month won't delay you that much. That's why I use 12 months. If you were to extend that out to like 36, I'd be sitting there saying, let's watch our cash a little bit, but 12 is not unreasonable.
Well, with that being said, I would recommend that we push it out to 18 months, just because I do know that there's going to be some residents in the area that are going to be affected adversely if we were to move forward with this. So I don't know how the rest of us you feel, but I would be for putting that for 18 months. And I have nothing else.
Anyone else have anything?
What would
Can we
the,
dispose of that issue?
Oh.
what would the 18 months do to the township?
It would,
You're gonna be carrying EDUs for
yeah,
longer.
Right.
you'd be basically carrying some of the expense for another 6 months.
I
The
think-
interest expense, I mean, you're gonna get paid back on the principal, but you're gonna be incurring 6 additional months of the interest only on that portion which is going to be assessed. So if you remember our numbers, I think we're looking at about assessing about $500,000 to $600,000. So theoretically, at 2% on that, move the decimal over, it'd be a couple $1,000.
I think it's contrary to really the whole concept of us moving forward, which is to put this in and get everybody on as quickly as possible.
Right. Yeah, you go too far out. Mr. Mania, then Ms. Layman.
Bob, do you foresee any hitch in the permit process? Does that normally happen?
You've been involved many years with DEP. There
Get too
shouldn't
much
be.
sun.
I figured that was gonna be your answer.
A, you're not in Highlands. B, DEP has accepted the additional capacity of the plant, so it should be a simple sewer extension permit. There is only one stream crossing, no wetland. It should be pretty much routine. But those of us who have dealt with DEP for a while, take routine with a grain of salt.
Ms. Layman?
I disagree with Mr. Roman with the pushing out to 18 months, because if you put 18 months in, they're gonna want another 6 months after that. I think that 12 months should be the target. And then if somebody needs another couple of months for various, reasons, we can evaluate that on a case-by-case situation. Because like the mayor said, we wanna get this completed, we don't wanna just linger and drag it on for a long period of time.
Well, then we would have to add a mechanism, because as far as I know, there is no mechanism to extend. If we put 12-month deadline,
It says it right in there.
we put a 12-month deadline, we definitely would have to put that in there.
It's in there.
Well, you put it in there, but that does not say that this governing body
says it
in
right here.
19 couldn't adopt that forward. For instance, if in fact there was a shortage of eligible, one of the issues in the Bud Lake system was physically finding the plumbers, et cetera, and places. You wanted that there's only 35 properties, but that's why they extended it out. You can always change that later.
Mayor?
You have to recognize that this is a resolution, it's not an ordinance, so at any
Right.
point in time, a resolution could be adopted to allow for a mechanism which would extend the timeframe, either on a case-by-case basis or overall based upon whatever factors the township is addressing at that point in time. So I would urge everybody to, let's get this going, let's pass it, let's move forward with the project already. This is probably the 10th meeting that we've had with respect to this project. I think that it's already a fait accompli that we're moving forward with it. Let's get it going.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Any other questions or any other concerns before we move forward? None? Thank
Do you
you.
wish to go to the other part of the meeting since
We
it's
are.
relatively full?
We are gonna go now. We're ready, chief.
Good evening, and thank you for coming out tonight. For those that don't know me, I'm Steve Beecher. I'm the Chief of Police here in town. And tonight we're going to be honoring, recognizing 8 people for exemplary conduct. The first is Gladys Thompson. Providing a safe environment for people, especially children, in our township has always been a top priority. And Gladys has helped our children get to and from school safely for the past 11 years. During that time, she's exhibited a friendly and caring disposition and was always dependable at her assigned post. She will be difficult to replace. In recognition of her service to our community, we have a resolution for Council President Nicastro to read.
Resolution of the Council of Mount Olive Township commending Gladys Thompson for her service of Mount Olive Township Police Department. Whereas Gladys Thompson has been a loyal crossing guard since 2006, serving the students of Mountain View School in a hardworking, reliable, and pleasant manner. And whereas Gladys guided children across the street safely and thereby has played a significant role in creating safe streets in the community, enlightened drivers of the presence of pedestrians, and portrayed a positive role model for children throughout the years. And whereas keeping students safe is a priority for the Township of Mount Olive and the Mount Olive School District, who together work to employ qualified and passionate people such as Gladys to perform crossing guard services. And whereas the Council of Mount Olive Township desires to convey to you an expression of appreciation and grateful acknowledgement for the valued service rendered by you as an employee of the Township of Mount Olive for the past 11 years. Now therefore be it resolved by the Mayor and the Township Council of the Township of Mount Olive that they do hereby express sincere gratitude to Gladys Thompson for her years of outstanding public service to the citizens of Mount Olive, and do further wish her health, happiness, and fortune in her future endeavors.
Thanks again, Gladys. So, I know the reason that most of you are here tonight is for the awards and recognition with regards to an incident we had in town with regards to carbon monoxide poisoning. I'm pleased to announce that the Gennaro family who are here tonight, Tabitha, James, Madison, and Paul, if you just raise your hand to be recognized. Appreciate you coming out. These are one of those calls that really restore your faith in people, because not only were our officers responding to this call and had a pivotal influence in what happened, but we have 2 civilians here, Mr. Afam Nwandu and Melanie Milo, who on the night in question just happened to be walking down the street and were called by Mr. Gennaro to render assistance, and they never thought twice about it. They rushed down there and they helped them out, and I really think that they helped save lives that tonight as well as our officers. So what I'd like to do is ask Mr. Nwandu, Ms. Milo, if you would come up. Officers Cione, Laricki, Reynolds, Coppinger, and Corporal Gilman, please. Thanks for coming out. Communications officers Lorena Papa and Daniel Mayo. On August 14th, 2017, at 7:26 p.m., communications officers Lorena Papa and Daniel Mayo received a 911 call for a report of possible carbon monoxide poisoning with victims inside number 3 Fenimore Court. Mr. Gennaro had come home from work to find family members unresponsive in the household. He located his 2 youngest children on the first floor and was able to remove his 12-year-old daughter Madison and 9-year-old son James to the front lawn. He found his wife Tabitha upstairs but could only manage to get her to the landing. He subsequently called 911 requesting assistance. While waiting for officers, Mr. Gennaro observed his neighbors walking on the street and yelled for their help. They chose to immediately render assistance. These two Good Samaritans were Afam Nwandu and Melanie Milo. Mr. Nwandu got Mrs. Gennaro off the landing to the front lawn. Ms. Milo started opening windows to vent the house. They located the two older sons, Jordan and Brandon DeMarcado, ages 23 and 25, in the basement, but they were unable to move them. All three exited the house to get fresh air. Officers Sicione, Reynolds, Coppinger, Laricki, and Corporal Guman arrived on scene. Officers Sicione and Reynolds rendered immediate first aid to James, Madison, and Tabitha. Corporal Guman, Officers Laricki and Coppinger, and Mr. Nwandu followed Mr. Gennaro to the back of the residence. Without hesitation, knowing the dangers present, they all entered the house. Corporal Guman, Officer Coppinger, and Mr. Nwandu rescued Brandon. Officer Laricki and Mr. Gennaro rescued Jordan. The two older boys were placed on the lawn to the back of the home. Their breathing was labored and they were unresponsive. All 5 family members suffered severe carbon monoxide poisoning. When Mr. Gennaro had found them unresponsive, they were literally suffocating. Carbon monoxide was absorbed into their red blood cells, compromising their ability to take in oxygen. Victim care was ultimately turned over to the arriving first aid and advanced life support units. Flanders Fire Department arrived on scene. Chief Tyler Wargo established incident command. He coordinated the treatment and transportation of the victims. Fire personnel ventilated the home to render it safe for investigation. The facts are clear on carbon monoxide poisoning. The level of carbon monoxide and the length of time people are exposed affect survival. The Center for Disease Control has designated 1,000 parts per million CO2 as life-threatening. Dr. Peter Harper of the Health and Safety Executive has determined that exposure as little as 84 parts per million over the course of 60 minutes can be fatal. Fire Marshal Mucione advised me that evening that 1,900 parts per million was measured on the second floor landing, and this was after vending was initiated. Mrs. Gennaro and James and Madison were all transported to Morristown Memorial for Hospital for treatment. Brandon and Jordan were medevaced to Jacobi Medical Center in the Bronx as a hyperbaric chamber was needed, as their carbon monoxide levels were much higher. As a result of the actions of Corporal Guman and Officers Laricki and Coppinger and Afam Nwandu and Melanie Milo, we had a positive outcome in this situation. They were also transported to Morristown Memorial Hospital for treatment of their carbon monoxide levels, which were rendered to be safe, and they were later released. As I said before, I'm happy to tell you that all members of the Gennaro family have recovered with no indications of organ damage. My officers, as well as our Good Samaritans, were discharged the evening of the 14th. Considering the high carbon monoxide levels and exposure period of hours, it is a miracle that all are well. The assistance of Mr. Nwandu and Ms. Milo, Corporal Guman and others, Officers Laricki and Coppinger were pivotal in the survival of the Gennaro family. For extending themselves beyond their safety to render prompt aid and save the lives of the Gennaros, Mr. Afam Nwandu and Ms. Melanie Milo are hereby awarded the Civilian Service Award. For placing themselves in harm's way, fully aware of the risks, Corporal Guman, Officer Laricki, and Officer Coppinger are hereby awarded the life-saving medal. The professional manner in which communications officers Daniel Mayo and Lorena Papa dispatched officers fire and first aid units, advanced life support, medevac transportation, mutual aid, and investigating agencies directly contributed to a positive outcome. For a highly credible act in the line of duty, they are awarded the Honorable Service Medal. Officers Scione and Reynolds are awarded the Honorable Service Medal as well for immediate treatment rendered to Mrs. Gennaro and her children James and Madison after they were taken to the front lawn. Nice job, guys. This was an especially difficult call. If you're a dispatcher, it's sometimes we often take dispatchers and communications officers for granted. But on this particular evening, they had to deal with a multitude of agencies, and I might be missing some, but these are most. The Flanders Fire Department, Flanders First Aid, Bud Lake Fire Department, ambulances from Roxbury, Stanhope, Netcong, and Chester, as well as St. Clair's Hospital paramedic units. Atlantic Air 1 and North Star Medevac were also used that evening. We're very proud of our relationship with the emergency services in town, and when it comes to an incident like this, it really jumps to the forefront, because in order for everyone to have survived this incident, everybody had to do their job, from the officers that were initially on scene, to the fire personnel that arrived, to the first aiders, to those that rendered advanced life support, to the people that made sure that the medevac helicopters could safely land, to the medevac pilots that took our victims to the hospital. And then even when we had the two boys, Brandon and his brother, at Morristown, they had to be transferred over to the Bronx. Once again, time was of the essence. I have some Flanders personnel here tonight that I would like to recognize. First and foremost, the incident commander that evening, Chief Tyler Wargo. Chief, if you would step up front. As I mentioned your names, I'd appreciate it if you could step up front. Chief. First Assistant Chief Mike McDermott. Second Assistant Chief Frank Zeller. Greg Widzimick. Sean Foote. Melissa Widzimick. Laura DeFelice. William Shaw. Erica DePack. Fred DeToro Jr. Kevin Dolan. Sean Dolan. Scott Falutico. Doug Fennicle. Joshua Heyman. Nick Erhin. Matthew Jazicki. Andrew Leader. Mark Mucione. Nicole Shields. Spencer Shouty. Stephanie Smith. Alex Stazak and James Stazak. In addition, I'd like to recognize from the Bud Lake Fire Department, Chief Kevin Mahoney, Chief Bob Sheard, and Chief Mike Dolan. They're not able to be here tonight. And from the Bud Lake First Aid Squad, Captain John Leone and Lieutenant Cassandra Erickson. Thank you all very much. Mr. and Mrs. Gennaro, would you like to come up? You're good.
I know. Makes us all look good.
Thank you guys so much. I've seen down a lot, but thank you so much.
Thank you all. It was truly a pleasure and honor to be able to present you and recognize you with awards tonight. Thank you.
I'm just going to add something. All right. Thank you. I wanted to add something to the presentation this evening. And I know I speak on behalf of the entire council. One of the most important things that we do up here is provide for the health and safety of the residents of Mount Olive. And although tonight we recognize a number of different people, including civilians, the fact remains that the fire, rescue, and police do this on a daily basis for the township. So although we recognize only certain people, it is the entirety of our response in an emergency crisis situation that's being recognized here tonight. So if you weren't mentioned, the council recognizes, the town recognizes the fact that when there is an emergency in town, you're the ones who run into the crisis. And for that, we thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you all again, and thank everyone here. I'm assuming you don't want, if you don't want to stay for the rest of the meeting, you're welcome to. If not, now would be a time to get up, and thank you again.
We have some exciting resolutions.
It's exciting.
Bye, Tabitha. Take
Nobody wants to get up. So they're in between. Do we go? Do we stay?
Right. Right.
Everybody wants to get There's a few people
See you soon.
Take care.
Yeah.
Great job.
Great job.
I remember reading it. And
everywhere. My friends from Dallas call me as well.
Really?
It was
Yeah.
nationwide. Or something like that. It's big.
yeah, and you know, I'm quite happy that so many people showed up tonight.
Yeah.
It's just a good community.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you, Chief.
Nice. Take care, Chief.
Chief, thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
I thought that when she walked in. I was like, yeah. That's all.
Yes. Thank you. Guys, congratulations. What a wonderful thing you said. You know what? It's the way it happens. You just have to be there and then you react because he's a good guy.
There you go.
That's right. Yes, congratulations. I'm sure you're very proud.
Wonderful.
Congratulations.
Take care.
Take care.
Right.
Good night. Okay. Okay, back to the agenda. We have, next item for discussion was the draft of the personnel policy and procedural manuals. Any questions on that, Bob?
Yes, what I've attempted to do is, well, let me put it this way. We have periodically, every 2 years, updated the Policy and Procedures Manual, which is something which is required by the Morris County Joint Insurance Fund, since they do periodic updates to it and changes. Council has diligently done that, and unfortunately, the manual that's on record in the Township Clerk's office was never updated. And the official manual was 2010, and it never been fully updated. So when I became aware of that, I said, okay, what I've done is I took the 2010 manual, I added to it the resolutions that you did in 2012, 14, and 16, and changed those sections that you had approved. I then went into it and I looked at the JIF manual. The JIF manual has a provision in it that says that you must comply with certain policies, not procedures. These are policies, almost verbatim. And the reason for that is a liability purpose. And you basically have benefited by adopting their policies because you get a 10% discount on the liability portion because you're in compliance with their manual. So I went back and I compared the 2010 manual to the actual JIF manual and found out that there were a lot of discrepancies. A lot of it had to do with, just in the policies. I did not change any of the procedures. I'm talking only about the official policies required by the JIF, and most of those had to do with changes in the statutes or court rulings that basically interpreted statutes in a different fashion, which the JIF incorporated into its official policies. I then updated your 2010 manual to match the JIF manual for those policies that JIF says you have to have. So I've drafted and given to you a 2017 version. I also changed the format somewhat so that it's something that when you're done and you go to amend it, you change your sheets out with different dates on it so you can track your history. I put a history section in it, etc., so that in the future, someone could look at that. In 2018, when they came up with the new change sheets, you'll be able to go into that manual and change those specific sections and reference that so that somebody knows that they're looking at a manual which is current because it will reflect the current changes. So the only new thing in there was in fact a policy that the mayor wanted to institute, which basically tightened up on nepotism. So we have two nepotism policies in there for everybody before July 1 and for everybody after July 1, based upon something the mayor wished to do. I was not aware of the fact that you had amended the manual earlier this year. When I asked the clerk's office, she gave me all the stuff from 716 backwards. This year you adopted 4 policy changes, actually no policy, 4 procedure changes where you basically changed a reporting mechanism where you basically replaced the township financial officer with the assistant to the township manager in certain complaint processes and stuff like that. They're not in here, they'll be put in here. I just became aware of those today. What I'm suggesting to you is you need to have on file a current manual. I think the manual needs to be massaged. I think going over it and looking at it, there are sections which I think would be ripe to change. Canny did some of that and he put it over on a different system called the DMS system, which is an electronic system. He didn't incorporate it within the manual. As I read state law, you either have a detailed personnel ordinance or you can adopt a manual that you, the governing body, can control by changing it. But you have to have a personnel manual per se, and that's the method you've done here. So I think that what I'm suggesting to you is it'd be good to basically update your basis so that you've got a manual which is a starting point, which reflects the current GIF standards. Then when your new administrator comes in, he can spend time and amend those, review them and amend not the policies, procedures implementing those policies, because almost all the policies are really controlled by either the GIF or statutes that are out there that you really have no control over. Read it and weave statutes type stuff. So I basically got a starting point here, I hope, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have relative to it, but I think I'm just trying to give you a basis to work forward on.
Mayor?
What was the basis for including the policy that Bob Casey has to remain being paid by the township through 2025?
That's an interesting one. The only other thing I would do in the final is I'll number these things, but I have refrained from doing that because I have to talk to the computer people to figure out when I put a number in there that it can automatically refer back to that page because it's hard to find. But there's someone else had a question. Colleen.
After reading your paperwork here on this, I'm on board with the mayor thinking we really should have you continue this process with
The new person coming in is very capable of going forward on that basis.
I agree
Once we
with
get
you,
rid of
he
Bob,
is.
he's gone. He's not
I
coming back.
know. But what I'm thinking
This was
is,
the grunt work. So I did the grunt work.
I'm actually thinking I'm not giving him enough busy work that he's found this to start working.
Any substantive questions as to what?
Nothing, and
Good
Mr.
job,
Roman?
Bob.
Bob,
it's a very good job. I
Bob,
asked my question
First,
earlier.
on the recommendation regarding the policy on nepotism, is that stricter than the state standard?
Yes. What the mayor, there is no policy in the GIF manual on nepotism. It's a local policy. And what the mayor did is he narrowed the definition of family. So instead of going out to nieces and nephews and everyone else, he brought it back in tighter, so it's more restrictive.
Does that
Ms.
include my
Leibach?
relatives in Sicily?
It's actually,
I didn't see those.
it's actually less restrictive. It doesn't go out to every single relative.
Yes, okay.
The purpose of the nepotism, obviously, was that I don't believe it's good policy to have people who are closely related to each other working for the township for a number of different reasons. And we've had that in the township in the past. And since I have been mayor, I have basically enforced a policy, although we may not have had one, where I'm not going to hire somebody who is a wife, a brother, and a close relative, because it creates a number of different issues, including the possibility of some resentment among the other employees, favoritism, and the like. So a nepotism policy, I think we all can agree, is a good policy for the township to have. When it got down to actually defining what a family member was, it was starting to get ridiculous in terms of, was this person family, is this person family? So we tried to bring some common sense to the process. And we just limited it to a small group of people who are very closely related. So a wife of someone who's employed, a brother, a father, mother, and then it got into stepson, stepdaughter, and first cousin, and it just got a little bit ridiculous that eventually, if you employed the 9 degrees of Kevin Bacon, no one was ever going to be employed. So we tried to use a common sense approach to how we defined it, and I think that we arrived at something which is reasonable and certainly accomplishes the goals of what we're trying to do, which is that we don't want people who are closely related to someone who's already employed to work for the township.
Great, thank you.
Let's see.
Ms. Leibach, you had something for us?
Yes, I had, Bob, for the employees, for the performance evaluation appraisal,
Correct.
and so you said that that's done at the end of the year. I sent you the email, you had answered that for me. And, but I wanted to know, is their raise based on their appraisal, or is that just gone by what the union?
You'll have in your labor contract with the local employees, you have a provision in there for for merit increase built in depending upon the performance evaluation. And you also have mechanisms in that contract leading to the possibility of withholding some if it's below standard. So that's what's
Okay.
going on. What they're using is this manual but it's implemented through the labor contract because that is really a term and condition of employment which would be subject to a labor contract. This manual, the way the manuals are written, if the manual prevails unless the labor contract has an alternate provision, at which point in time the labor contract takes precedent over it, except for the thou shalt nots. All the thou shalt nots remain, but the other stuff basically defaults to the labor contracts.
Okay, so
But
that's
it's
in the
good to have
labor.
everything spelled out in here, because the reality is that sets the standard that the labor contract should be following.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to clarify that.
Mr. Roman?
Asked and answered.
Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you.
All right, then the last item is a draft outdoor dining ordinance
Yes.
that your planner has presented. He's also referring it to the Township Ordinance, excuse me, Planning Board Ordinance Committee for their review, et cetera. So this was the council president's request, so it's open for discussion. Whatever comments you may have would be fed back to that, to the township planner, which would go to that ordinance committee, because theoretically, this is a planning ordinance, would come from the planning board to you, and then go back to the planning board. So this is really before it's in the planning board stage, so it's ripe for your input.
Mr. Roman?
Bob, on item number 10, no outdoor food preparation and/or cooking shall be permitted. I kind of have a problem with that because it's kind of vague, because food preparation could mean anything, and I kind of recall, being to a couple of outdoor cafes where they make the guacamole right in front of you, and that could be considered preparation. Or if an establishment had enough space and let's say there was an outdoor grill, there might not be any current establishments in town that could take advantage of outdoor, services of this nature. But I'm thinking, in the future, if an establishment wanted to do that, I think this would be rather restrictive. So that I would like that revisited. Also, item number 11, no amplified sound.
Yeah, that's one I picked up on. I think there needs to be some decibel rated in there. I mean, amplified could simply be elevator music in the background.
Right.
Depends upon the level. So I think that needs to be addressed in terms of dBs.
It should actually just say that there shall be no amplified sound beyond that limit already established within the
Yeah,
township.
we have that.
As permissible.
That's,
I think they want to stop an outdoor band or boom boxes routine.
Yeah, but you know what? The bottom line is that we already have a noise ordinance in town, and if the noise ordinance has an acceptable level of decibels, then it should be to the extent of the existing township ordinance with respect to the noise ordinance.
Yeah, that's actually exactly what we were talking about, keep it within that.
And then the only other item that I did not see being addressed is if we want to curtail the number of outdoor spots available, as for, let's say if an establishment has 20 indoor tables, and if they physically could, do we want to limit them to X percentage of what they have on the indoor? I would like at least feedback from somebody else that's just.
I think the reality is that this is, it's within your shopping centers. And so I think if you look at what the actual sidewalk space in front of those places, I'm not quite sure it's going to be,
Right.
unless it happens to be a corner where you can wrap the corner, I don't know if you're going to have that much room to do much.
Right, and I don't see I can't think of a current establishment that would exceed any restrictions that we may or may not put. I'm just putting it out there for discussion, but I just want to be able to make sure that in the future, somebody doesn't decide to take advantage of their limited space that they have on the inside. Say they were a small limited capacity establishment where they have maybe 10 tables, but they just so happen to have a lot of frontage out front, and then they circumvent, and just put, a numerous amount of tables outside.
Mayor?
Yeah, I think I've always been a supporter of this type of proposal. I've long pushed to allow establishments to be able to serve food outside. Number one, I am not against having them prepare food outside, even if it's on a grill. And I'm not against having them have a band outside, if appropriately presented, timed. I am business friendly. I know that the community has pushed for a long time to have increased restaurant services in town. I think this is one way that we will actually get it. I look forward to seeing what the restaurants are prepared to do. So some of the suggestions that Alex has thrown out there, I actually adopt, and some I think that we need to be a little bit leery in terms of what we're limiting in the first instance. Again, although this will be an ordinance and not a resolution, there's nothing which changes our ability to adopt a amending resolution down the road after we've seen the way that it gets implemented. So I'd rather, and I give this direction to the planning board as well, I'd rather be more inclusive than less inclusive. For instance, let's say that the Corner Pub wanted to run an event in their parking lot. They got the permission of the condo association on a Saturday afternoon in the summertime, and they wanted to have a band there, and they wanted to be able to, you know, they got the appropriate approvals from ABC to be able to serve liquor, whatever the case may be. And as long as it was properly permitted so that the health department knew what was going on, I'm all in favor of that. Let's provide more opportunity for the businesses rather than say, okay, you know what, we're gonna allow outdoor seating, but you can only have 2 tables. So the guidance that I would give both to the planning board and to the council from my perspective is be more inclusive, and let's look at it and tone it back as we see what kind of abuses may be out there. And I assume that there really won't be a lot of abuses, because I don't know who's gonna take advantage of this at the end of the day that already doesn't have tables outside. So I think that we're, you know, that's the guidance that I would give at this point.
Ms. Lebo?
I have a couple of questions just to, I like to have everything to coordinate with one ordinance with another ordinance, that type of thing. So my questions are, I do believe from past experience that if a restaurant, like for instance, Westlake Chinese, they're not allowed to have the doors open because that's a health violation, having the doors open. I don't know, bugs are going to fly in or whatever. And that's pretty much with all the restaurants. They can't pin their doors open. So I just want to make sure that by having tables outside, which I think is an excellent idea, that we cover our base on that. See what I'm?
It's not uncommon for municipalities now to allow outdoor dining. If bugs become a problem, you'll end up with zappers or something. But it's,
No.
from a health standpoint, there's a difference between
Having the
you're
door
right,
open?
The indoors got to be separated by a screen and stuff. But the assumption, I think, is that when you eat outdoors, bugs are part of dinner.
Okay, yeah, I guess so.
protein.
But I just want to make sure if somebody doesn't come up and say something, well, how come you can eat outside but you can't have the door open? So that's my question.
Well, I think that the ordinance should say that all applicable health department rules, regulations of both the township and the county and the state of New Jersey are complied with.
And the other question that I have, which we had the issue with the, way back in the day when we had a situation with a litigation, the gentleman had hired somebody to go around and check all the restaurants to see how many tables they had to make sure they were paying for the proper EDUs. So what I'm wondering, if I don't want to have a repeat of that, if you have more tables outside, does that mean you're having more customers, more diners, and do you need more EDUs? So do we?
The issue. I spent many years in Monmouth County to a place which has tremendous number of outdoors. And the constant comment from the restaurant owners was, outside tables do not increase the number of people eating. It simply moved them from inside to outside.
It's absolutely true.
That's what I thought so,
My personal
too.
experience in that community and in other communities since there, is that seems to be the case. If you look right here, the planning board, your planner has recognized that under number 14. And what he says in 14 is, just because you add tables outside, we're not increasing your parking requirements, because
That was my next question.
He's recognizing the fact that it's not necessarily, it's
not more,
marginal
right.
increase in the number of actual people eating dinner. And that seems to be what's happening all over.
I agree, but I just wanted to pass those questions by to make sure.
I mean, Chuck already in
He's
here.
good,
because he
I
didn't-
know.
If it had been a concern, he would have basically pushed for an increase in parking requirements, which is the key on any of this.
Right.
He says no, because it's pretty well recognized it's a trade.
Right. Very good, thank you.
Anyone else?
Okay, what we'll do is we'll capture your comments, send it to the
Yep.
planner, and a copy will come to you, and this will be per email, and probably you'll see it back 3 months. before you-
Perfect, for next year's season, it'll be perfect for the
Next year's
season,
season,
for the
that's
season.
correct.
Yeah.
Thank you
Spring.
very much, looking forward to that. We have 12 resolutions. Does anyone have any questions or comments on resolutions?
I have one comment.
Yes.
There's a resolution on tonight for transfer of a liquor license. It's going to be removed. Number
Oh, number
12.
Okay.
They thought they were going to be giving me their very last piece of paperwork by today. It did not happen, so I have to push it
Okay,
off.
so we'll remove that.
Joe, I have a,
Yes, Mr.
for the sewers, the Old Flanders sewer resolution, can we put that on for the
It's
next
on
meeting?
non-consent.
It's
for
on
tonight.
It's on
So-
non-consent, and
tonight.
you can adopt it as amended the way we suggested, or you can
Right.
hold off till the next meeting. We'll
No, we
dress
just
it up.
want to be
No, we could
done.
Whatever you
amend, put
wish.
it on as
We'll amend it? Good.
We'll amend
Thank
it.
you. That's
Is
what
that
I
the
wanted to make
transfer
sure.
from
Wine rack.
Yes,
the wine rack
it's,
to Sandy's?
the owner of Sandy's is purchasing the wine rack.
Okay.
Yes. Yep.
Anyone else, anything on the ordinances? 2 ordinances we have. Does anyone have any questions, concerns on the ordinances? No. Bob, you're still up there then, I guess. It's you
No,
with the
I'll leave right now.
We have administrative report, which is the Overlook Apartments
yes, I knew
refuse
there was gonna be
removal.
Just an update, I know that several members of the governing body have been involved with the problems up at the apartments. There's a court hearing later this month. In talking to the health department, the key that they're saying, and several of you have been receiving complaints, as soon as you get a complaint, call the health department. We need to go out and get a picture. We can't use your testimony or someone else's testimony when we're before the judge, but a picture says 1,000 words. So what we're trying to do, if you hear a complaint, get a picture. Currently, in speaking to them today, the valet system's working a little better. They've actually now, recently have hired 2 employees who do nothing but drive around the area constantly, picking up anybody who got it out improperly, whatever the case is. So there is some progress being made, but the real issue is going to be the court case in a couple of weeks, at which point they're contesting the old fines, et cetera. Going into that case and future cases, that's why we want to have pictures. So whatever the case is going to be, we can walk in and say, here, on Thursday the 25th, these is what we find, and just lay the pictures in front of the judge. So pictures are important.
Yes,
Pictures we
Mrs.
take, by the way, because you got to testify
Right,
that
that's what I-
picture is accurate. Pictures we have to take, if you take them, you have to be subpoenaed.
All right, that's what I was going to ask you, because I have people send me pictures all the time of the garbage cans, but that has to be taken
It would
by
be best
township
for them
or...
that we see it and testify that way. It's not-
Right. Now, I had mentioned that to them, and they don't want to have problems with the management.
That's
So-
why, if we know about it, we take the pictures
Right.
with a camera which has a date and time
Right,
on it.
okay.
and put them in evidence.
So I can just let you guys know which location, and then you'll go out there, so
Soon as
that
you hear
keeps the
about it,
resident
because we
out of
got
it.
Guys running around picking up, so we gotta get there before them.
That's
Okay.
right.
All right, great,
Mr.
thank you.
Mannion?
Am I to understand that they refuse to get dumpsters?
It's not as easy a solution, and I would suggest that we not have any real discussion in terms of personal thoughts, because there is a perception out there that they believe that the township is picking on them, and it really needs to be handled by the prosecutor in the court system at this point in time.
Right. They've got an alternate system. One of the issues that will be presented in court, discussed in court, is they have an expert opinion relative to what they're doing, et cetera, all of which will be part of the case to be heard in a week or 2.
Thank you.
So the message is, let us know as soon as you hear something so we can get pictures.
Thank you, Bob.
See
Thank
something,
you.
say something.
Any old business? Seeing none, we have a new business item, which is, Mr. Roman had brought up the garbage issue at Mount Playmore, and I think Jim is here, Lynch, to discuss that.
Yeah, for those of us that are not aware, some of you might have gotten some complaints from residents that people attending Mount Playmore and the splash pad are not adhering to the no food signage and are leaving their litter behind, and wanted at least to have a discussion as to whether something needs to be done, if we need to improve something. and that's, some people have suggested fines, so, Jim, you have any advice?
What we've done is, yes, Mr. Roman has encapsulated what's going on there wonderfully. You have a great playground, you have a great water park. Through the course of the summer, we have hundreds of children through there a day and their parents. We have signs up, we have a plethora of garbage cans and recycling cans that are emptied daily. We bag the garbage up there, we spray the cans daily with bee spray to try and cut down on some of the residue. What you have is children and parents bringing ice cream, potato chips, juice, soda, sugary drinks. It gets spilled on the tiles, it gets spilled on the play apparatus, it gets spilled within the confines of the splash pad that don't get hit with the water from the unit. It draws bees. What we're seeing up there is yellow jackets. Yellow jackets love this time of year. The past 3 weeks have been horrible. As you can tell, some of the trees outside are going very quickly to fall colors. It could be a interpretation of a bad winter coming, I don't know. But the bees are in overdrive right now. Every year we go through this. Last year the splash pad was new. Now we have more crowd up there this year. We have a full year under our belts. So, as I stated, we do the garbage. We are the maintenance department. We can't enforce anything up there. Every day it's done, we clean up, we do the best we can. We inspect the playground 3 times a week. We inspect the splash pad daily. I have more control that we use as a township for pest control. We have installed bee traps. They went in about a week ago.
Oh, good.
It's the same time every year. More control knows it's on auto cycle with them. They bring them in. They are hung around the fences on some of the trees. If you go up there, you'll see them around the park, around the concession stands, by football, by soccer. It's the areas that are common where we have food. That's the common denominator. I have spoken with Mr. Casey about this issue. I've spoken with Claudia about this issue. It really boils down to, we could have all the garbage cans in the world. The more garbage cans we put out, the more bees we're going to
The more
attract, because
bees,
there's more
yeah.
places for food to go. The more children and more people we have having fun in the park, it's a great thing. It also brings more food and drink in. So we have a giant attractant. I could do a lot of things for you guys. I can't do the enforcement up there. That's the one thing. We had splash pad attendants this year. They did a wonderful job. Even they are told by some parents, I don't care. So now we're down to a point where, you as the governing body, administration, it's really an issue of, do we need an enforcement agent up there? How do we, are the police the enforcement agent? Do we hire attendants as the enforcement agents? It boils down to enforcement, which is the side that I can't give you the answer on. I can give you the fact, which I've done, and that goes back to now. I mean, I'm sure you have questions and I'll answer them, but I can't give you an absolute answer.
Jim, when you said, somebody said parents don't care, now is that in reference to park personnel telling them not to do something and they decided, they straight out said, I don't care?
We've had splash pad attendants this season told parents, went to them and showed them the signage and said, you cannot have food or drink in this area. I gave you the polite version of their response. Unless we call the police to the site and have them removed, which the attendants try not to do. We really don't need a police scene up there, but it can get chippy at times with the public. Unfortunately, people feel they have an entitlement to bring food and drink into the playground, even though we have signs and we have pictograms up there that show no food or drink. We had one person explain, as the attendant pointed to the sign, I just can't bring ice cream or soda in here because that's all that's in the circle with the line through it. That's what goes on. I mean, this is, we're dealing with the public now. That's what we do. And, I don't know. I don't know the answer. I mean, this is a microcosm of what goes on in our parks and our public facilities. It's really up to you guys to decide how we want to enforce, or I could just keep emptying garbage and put up bee traps. It can go from a simple answer, we're already spending the money, to next year we look at attendance, and there are other towns. Morris Township has playground attendance. We could look at that. It's more money in the end, which we all are concerned with the cost.
Bob, did you have something?
Well, the only thing I was going to indicate to you is the season's over, and I think at this point in time, the issues that are being raised really should be looked at prior to next year's season to see if there's an alternate way of doing something. There's another problem up there that that everybody's aware of, which is Jim's talked about a number of times, is the whole question of parking on grass and stuff. So there needs to be some serious review as to what's going on, and maybe there should be some changes for next season going
Mayor?
forward.
I mean, it's possible that there should be some changes going on, but we're not hiring an attendant to enforce no food. The bottom line is that we have an attendant up there, and if someone is eating food and is asked to leave with the food and they don't, then the attendant has the obligation to call the police. Same goes forward with the parking on the grass. Same goes forward with anything which happens at the splash pad. The problems are not so severe that we're going to become a police state. And we're gonna have somebody who's doing the parking, who's doing the splash pad, and who's doing the, that's not happening. So what I suggest we do is that we pass an ordinance that says there's a $250 fine for eating in either the splash pad or bringing food into either the splash pad or Mount Playmore. You put it up front, and to the extent that somebody complains about it, the attendant complains about it, and the attendant goes to the person and said, look, you can't have it here, I'm required to call the police if you don't leave. Make it a fine that's substantial, that will deter them. But we're not hiring additional people. Believe me, I know. We have many needs in this municipality that could be undertaken and ultimately taken care of if we hired additional people that go well beyond the issue of someone having ice cream and soda in the splash pad. So you want to do something intelligent, put a big fine on it. I find it wholly inappropriate that someone will speak to our attendant or to a parent who has pointed out that there's no food allowed and says, you know what, go screw yourself, or I don't care. You know what, call the police. Let them deal with it. That's why we have the police, but we're not gonna have monitors up at Turkey Brook. It's a waste of money, and it would be ineffective, and it would cause all kinds of hosts of other issues. Do you have to give these people guns because when they get irate, after you tell them? I mean, it's just a kind of, I just don't see it as a feasible solution to the problem.
Mr. Owen?
No, I do agree with the mayor that at this point in time, we definitely should not be hiring additional personnel just for those enforcement actions, but we have to do something, because I think what's going to end up happening if we do not at least put a fine on the table with appropriate signage indicating as such, the problem's just going to get worse, because what will happen is parent A will bring food in. Parent B normally wouldn't do it, but when it sees parent A doing it, they feel now that they can do it, then that'll transfer on to C, D, and E. So I think we should at least move forward and create a fine mechanism of sort. I mean, I'd be more inclined with the first offense, just a warning from the police department. Don't want to sock somebody with a $250 fine just right off the top of the. But we have to do something, because we've invested a lot of money into our parks, and it would be negligent on this body to not do something if we allowed it to decay or be misused, because especially, I mean, I've been inside the Mount Playmore. Yeah, there are a little bit, you can just gum, there's sticking in there. So, if we don't catch it now or nip it in the bud, or at least reduce the growth, we're looking at a much bigger problem in years to come.
I agree. I think we should look, I like the mayor's suggestion of a fine. I don't necessarily agree with doing a warning, because that's the attendant's job. The attendants will warn them, and if they give them a problem, then it goes right to the police, and that's it. You've warned them, you try to, I know it firsthand, so I know it's there, and people do get nasty, so you know what? You warn them and you say, if you don't stop, I'll have to call the police, and if they continue, you call the police and they get fined. And I agree with that. That's the best way to resolve it, I believe, would work, because if you put the sign big enough, if they don't,
We have multiple signs.
no, I'm saying big enough with a fine.
Yeah, we can add
$250.
the language for
Right.
if you do, draft a fine, ordinance, we
Yeah.
can put that up. There's multiple signs stating no food in those
Right,
playgrounds.
but they don't
and
pay
that
attention to
splash
that, they
pad.
pay attention to money. And if they can get fined for it, then it's a substantial amount, it's worth it. If it's $10, they're not gonna worry, they can't. But I agree, but we should figure out something that you wanna come up with a, whether it's a $250 or whatever fee, but we should do something, I
I
agree.
think 250 is a good number.
It's a good number to start with, it's fine, if we wanna look into that, Bob.
No one's into collecting the money.
No.
Everybody's into protecting the equipment.
Right, that's all it really is. It has nothing to do with the money, it's just to scare them enough that they won't do it. And that's the idea,
It
so
sends a
we can
message.
move forward with something with that. Ms. Laidlaw?
Jim, how well do the bee traps work?
They're effective. They're catching insects.
Oh, good.
What it is this time of year, the bees are in high production mode to create enough food to get through the winter.
I have to say, I have never seen feistier bees in my whole life, to the fact that I
They're
got
yellow jackets.
stung. When I saw you when I was leaving, I went to put garbage in the garbage can, and they came right out and circled my finger, stung me, and I couldn't make it to the food truck thing because I was in so much pain.
I've actually seen where, I forget whether it was on a golf course, they actually put the garbage cans in the ground, like below ground, kind of garbage cans, which was an interesting
It's a
concept.
unique take. I've seen that concept in California used.
Related to bees. No, I've seen it elsewhere. I forget where I saw it. Do you remember seeing it somewhere, Howie? I don't. I've seen it where they actually put the garbage can in the ground.
Yeah, I've seen literature on that, and I've seen it done in California.
I wonder what it does.
You know, with our
The
parks,
bees can't get to it.
They can't get to it, so.
they don't
Nice.
like it. And
They
that's why
don't
we
like
went to the cans with the lids.
Mm-hmm.
What they're going for, though, is the recycling can where the sweet drinks are. We have the hole.
Yeah,
to
and you
throw
have the
bottle in.
hole. I know, that's what happened to me. It was like, shoo, it just
Yeah,
flew right
it's-
out.
and it's
We
the yellow
should just
jackets.
outlaw sweet drinks in town. I know.
Bring it down.
Limit that, that's it, too much sugar.
I don't know how well that worked out in New York City, Mayor.
Yeah, it didn't work out too well, did
But I don't
it?
even think sweet drinks are the answer, because at the one, at the smoke trailer, that one guy that was running it, he had a coffee cup right there. And I mean, I don't know how much sugar he used, but it was surrounded with bees and.
It gets to be a problem as you get later into the summer. It's something we've dealt with for years now. Another aspect that's gone into this that I did leave out, this year recreation is renting the gazebo. On weekends, we have 3 rentals a day at the
Yeah,
gazebo.
I saw a lot of people there on
It's
the
up the
weekends.
volume of garbage. You know, there's a lot of things, I mean, when we get the budgets, I can ad nauseum lecture on what the costs were this year. We had a lot of costs that escalated because we had a full year of splash pad. It was very successful. We have rentals on the gazebo. The playground has always been successful. You guys have put a lot of money into your parks, as you have stated. You have a facility up there that's phenomenal. It's the devil's in the details. If we move the garbage cans further away, people aren't gonna go to the garbage cans.
Right.
It's a catch-22 on a lot of issues. I gotta say, I was not for an enforcement attendant. I don't like that idea. I don't think I agree with the mayor, but it's an idea that other towns have used. I haven't had a very good, next week I have a meeting with Morris Township to see what their success rate is with it. You know, we have other issues we're talking to them about. I think the option we have is enforcement of the signage we have and now attaching a penalty.
Yep,
It's really the only way you can go.
I agree, Ms. Lebo.
Since we have Mr. Lynn Chair, I have another question. We still have the porta potties up there. Are we planning on putting something in that's better, nicer than porta potties?
The porta potties are there because they're immediate right to that site and are actually used more by the soccer parents. The bathrooms for the splash pad will be
That's-
open until we get to cold weather.
Right.
Once we get to cold weather, the problem I have with all the bathrooms in Turkey Brook is my staff leaves at 3:30 in the afternoon. If someone chops open a door, we have frozen pipes the next morning. That's why Flanders Park, Turkey Brook, we winterize all the bathrooms, we lock them down. We keep the porta potties as a cost through the winter for the amenities such as the dog park, Mount Playmore. When it snows, Mount Playmore gets closed. We do open the dog park when we can with snow.
Right.
So porta potties are going to be a necessary evil because the bathrooms are a liability that would expose our water systems and critical infrastructure to the
Right.
building itself.
What are Jill, I know Jill had talked about some kind of bathroom-type facility for down at the beach that's some kind of a building or something
They're
that's,
$3,500 a month to rent,
oh, how much do they cost to buy?
in excess probably of $25,000. They
Oh.
brought them in for the USGA at Trump National, or for the Women's Open at Trump National. A lot of high-end facilities use them. When they
Yeah.
did the mansion in May for the
Right.
Morristown Memorial Hospital, they use those on the sites a lot of times.
I actually have them at my house, full time.
I told you, they're very high-end, exquisite taste. So,
right.
it's an option, but it's, I mean, again, it's the dollars don't make sense.
No, we'd have to get somebody to donate it.
Does anyone else have any
Sponsor.
other questions on this? If not-
Colleen, actually, ultimately, when the whole Bud Lake area is redeveloped, it will include some type of a bathroom facility
right.
for that recreational option.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah, in the meantime, unfortunately, it's, the fact is that my plan is to bring back activity at Bud Lake Beach next year. And it'll have to be in some kind of temporary bathroom facility as it's been in the past.
Right, yeah. That's okay.
All right, well, thank you, Mr. Roman, for bringing it up, Mr. Lynch
Thank
for
you.
explaining everything, and we'll work on the ordinance to add a penalty to that and work on next year's signage and all for that.
Have a good
Thank
night,
you.
everyone.
Thank you, you too, Jim.
Any other new business?
I don't have new business, I have old business.
Back to old business.
I know, I
Any other
forgot.
old
I
business?
wanted to ask the question about, we had talked briefly about a month ago about the solar panels
Yes.
for the parking lot and then possibly on the roof of the building. Now, I know that what you and Mr. Rowan had said, that you've been at places where they had them in the parking lot and the snow
Yeah.
comes off and there's a pile.
That's been-
I was started asking a bunch of people who have them in their parking lots. They said, no, they don't have that problem. So I don't know if they've improved
Maybe they
them. Do they
improved them.
put little gutters on them? I mean, I can't, it just doesn't make sense that that would happen, because I would, you know.
Can look into it and see. If we're looking into solar, you can look in solar for every,
Right, especially, the other thing for the library too, they have a huge electric bill over
Yeah.
at the library, so I really I just know it's a really good way to cut down the cost, so.
But we can't put them on this building.
I know, this
Yeah,
building,
this-
our roof is too weak,
It'll cave,
it'll cave,
cave right through.
right.
but
You're looking at the parking lots,
either at the parking lot or the
library.
library, or actually, the library has a lot of room in their yard alone that they could do it. So I think we need to take a serious look at this, because we're missing an opportunity to save a lot of money.
Well, I think we were looking into the solar of some sort, right, Bob?
Yes, Jim and I have done some talking, and I think you're gonna find some capital items in this next year's budget. We're talking about one of
Oh,
which is
good.
solar here.
Okay.
Wonderful, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Leba. Any other old or new business? Anyone from the public wish to be heard at this point? Seeing none, close to the public. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second,
All in favor?
aye.
Any opposed? None. Open up, or close and open up the Mount Olive Township Council meeting for September 5th, 2017. Michelle, would you read the Open Public Meetings Act, please?
According to the Open Public Meetings Act, adequate notice of this meeting has been given to the Daily Record. Notice has been posted in the Municipal Building, 204 Flanders Drakestown Road, Bud Lake, New Jersey, and notices were sent to those requesting the same.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Amianda?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrante?
Here.
Mrs. Laybow?
Here,
Mr. Mania?
Here.
Mr. Stewart?
Here.
Mr. Roman?
Here.
Mr. Nacastro?
Here. Mr. Amianda, would you approve the minutes from the previous meeting, workshop and public meeting, and closed session?
I make a motion for approval of the minutes of the previous meetings on August 8, 2017, work session and public meeting, and on August 22nd, 2017, work session and public meeting and closed session.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Amianda?
Yes.
Okay, let me just bring to your attention, you were absent on both. of
No,
these.
I'm sorry.
So you won,
I'm abstain.
on both? Yes,
Abstain on both.
I'm abstain on both.
okay. Mr. Ferrante?
Yes.
Mrs. Laybow?
yes.
Mr. Mania?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Mr. Roman?
Yes. Abstain on August 8th, and yes on August 27th, workshop, public meeting and closed session.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes. We have 25 pieces of correspondence. Does anyone have anything on the correspondence? Seeing none, I open the hearing to the public on ordinance number 19-2017, an ordinance of the Township of Mount Olive, amending ordinance number 27-16, which established salaries for mayor, council department heads, supervisory personnel, and employees of the clerk's office. Mr. Ferrante.
I move for adoption and final passage ordinance number 19-2017.
Second,
Does anyone from the public wish to be heard on that? Seeing none, close to the public. Any counsel? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Amianda?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrante?
Yes.
Mrs. Laybow?
yes.
Mr. Mania?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Mr. Roman?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes, ordinance number 19-2017 is passed on second reading, and I hereby direct the clerk to forward a copy of the same to the mayor and publish notice of his adoption as required by the law. Next item on the agenda for first reading is ordinance number 20-2017, an ordinance of the Township Council of the Township of Mount Olive, County of Morris, State of New Jersey, to amend ordinance number 4-2012, vacating a portion of South Rose Lane. Ms. Laybow.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that ordinance number 20-2017 be introduced by title and passed on first reading, and that a meeting be held on September 19th, 2017, at 7 p.m. at the Municipal Building, 204 Flanders Drakestown Road, Bud Lake, New Jersey, for a public hearing, consideration of second reading, and passage of said ordinance, and that the clerk be directed to publish, post, and make available said ordinance in accordance with the requirements of the law.
Second.
Any council discussion? Anyone from the public wish to be heard? Seeing none, close to the public. Roll call, please.
Mr. Amianda?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrante?
Yes.
Mrs. Laybow?
Yes.
Mr. Mania?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Mr. Roman?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes. Mr. Maney, we have 11 consent resolutions. Does anybody wish to move any to non-consent?
Just put on the record that we're removing number 12.
Number 12.
On the record. Mr. Mania, would you move resolutions 1 through 11?
I move for approval of consent resolutions 1 through 11.
Second.
Anyone from the public wish to be heard on those? Close to the public. Any council comments on the resolutions? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Amianda?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrante?
Yes.
Mrs. Laybow?
Yes.
Mr. Mania?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Mr. Roman?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes. We have 2 non-consent resolutions. Would someone move resolution number 13 with changes, amendments that were made for this evening? Mr. Stewart, would you move resolution,
Yes.
Non-consent.
non-consent resolution number 13
I'd like to move
with amendment?
for adoption and final passage with the revisions, non-consent resolution 13.
Second.
Dawn, do you have the revisions on that? Just so we know, or?
I do. Do you want me to read them in? I don't know if you want, if we could just do as amended.
Do we need to do as amended?
As amended.
Okay, as amended at the workshop, then, that's fine. Seconded by Ms. Laybow, thank you. Any council discussion? Anyone from the public wish to be heard on that? Seeing none, close to the public. Roll call, please.
Mr. Amianda?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrante?
Yes.
Mrs. Laybow?
Yes.
Mr. Mania?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Mr. Roman?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes. We have resolution, non-consent resolution number 14. Mr. Roma, would you like to move that to consent
I move for approval of non-consent resolution number 14.
with revisions?
No.
No, there was no
No
revision.
revision.
What do we do?
There will be
till the next
a
meeting?
slight revision to reflect the action you took in 17, those 4 minor changes you
Oh.
made. So it'll be, there'll
should
be
we
some
write?
changes, wherever you made a change this year, where you changed finance officer to assistant administrator, that change will be
Should we
made.
put that on next one, then?
Why don't we
Why don't we wait till the next one?
Yeah.
Fine.
This way, we'll put that, we won't, yeah, we'll keep that at
Everything in one place.
consent. Okay. We'll table, yeah, resolution number 14 then.
Do we have to vote on that?
I don't think so.
I mean, I don't need a
Okay.
vote on that, right?
pulled it
Table
off.
No, we're tabling it, that one will be fine. Okay, let's see, we have a bill list. Mr. Amianda, would you move the bill list, please?
Yes, I make a motion for approval of motions. I make I make a motion for approval of motions of bill lists.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please. Is there anyone from the public? I'm sorry. Seeing none, close to the public, roll call, please.
Mr. Amianda?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrante?
Yes.
Mrs. Laybow?
Yes.
Mr. Mania?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Mr. Roman?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Abstain on check number 80953, yes to all others. Administrative reports, do we have anything from the mayor, Claudia, Bob?
I have several comments. Mount Olive police promotions will be held Sunday, September 10th at 12 at Mount Olive High School, followed by a banquet/barbecue at Vassar Park. On September 11th, we will have a memorial ceremony, which will begin promptly at 8:30 at Turkey Brook by the 9/11 Memorial. And a reminder to everyone that on September 30th, the Backyard Barbecue, which is an adult event, tickets are on sale on the Recreation website.
I just had one thing.
Thank you.
The signboard will be repaired Friday morning at 9 a.m.
Thank you.
Three-
I was wondering what
They will
happened
be
there.
here to repair.
Thank you. Any old business? Seeing none, any new business? Seeing none, any legal matters?
Nothing this evening, Mr. President.
Thank you. Council reports, Mr. Amianda, anything on Board of Ed or seniors?
Board of Education did not meet on September on September 4, 2017. Our next Board of Education meeting will be on September 12, 2017. Senior Citizens Club met today, September 5, 2017, for business items and reports. Council liaison reminded the club of tonight's council meeting and urged them to attend the meeting. And that's the end of my report.
Thank you. Mr. Ferranti, anything on Environmental Lake or Library?
Environmental Commission meets tomorrow, Library meets next week, and nothing on the Bud Lake Association.
Thank you. Ms. Lebow, anything on Economic, TNR, or Open Space?
Nothing.
Mr. Maney, anything on Legislative or Planning?
Planning, we have a meeting on the 14th.
I have an update from the Health Officer, Trevor. Administrative held monthly staff meeting, participated in State HD's Health Departments in bi-monthly Health Officers meeting, attended Business Administrator's Agenda Department Head meeting, met to discuss Old Flanders individual subsurface sewage disposal. Animal Controls started an annual door-to-door pet licensing census, created human rabies exposure standard operating guidelines, sent letters to cat owners with expired licenses, worked with Mount Olive TNR project to increase trapping of and rabies boosters. Environmental health inspected 22 food vendors in Mount Olive Food and Truck Festival. After a court-ordered conference call with the legal representation of Overlook, prosecutor, and judge regarding solid waste violations observed on the property, the case will advance to trial on trial scheduled. Created, distributed posters to Food Safety Month to the library, contracting towns, and Facebook. Had first of new monthly radio interviews on timely health topics on WRNJ. Held a child health clinic. NJ Department of Health conducted routine audit of vaccine for children program. Mentored BSN student for clinical program, Mount Olive resident. Senior transportation programs. A special trip this month was to Cracker Barrel and to Olstead Farms, and the seniors could use their farm market vouchers for the county, from the county. We borrowed a bus from the school district for approximately 1 week while the senior transportation dealer was maintenance. And finally, they updated department Facebook pages, department website, created customer satisfaction survey link on the department website, and distributed first electronic newsletter to our website subscribers, 98, regarding public health news and upcoming events. Mr. Roman, do you have anything on, and we meet in September, the third Wednesday of September at 6:30 here. Mr. Roman, anything on Recreation and Pride?
Nothing on Recreation. We meet later this month. Also on Pride, the Pride Committee chose banners and flags to go along the loop for Turkey Brook. They have been ordered, and hopefully we'll have them up shortly.
That's good.
Thank you. Mr. Stewart, anything on MOTV or Community Action Panel?
Community Action Panel is starting the planning for 2018.
Thank you. I'll ask them. Does anyone from the public wish to be heard? State your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, my name is Robert Oshust. My last name is spelled O-S-Z-U-S-T, and I'm at 307 Kings Arrow Road. I just had a question for Mr. Ferrante. I know the season's coming to an end, but when does the Bud Lake Association meet and where?
They meet at one of the residents' homes. It's usually quarterly that they'll meet. I could find out when the next meeting is for you.
I would be happy to know about
Yeah.
it. Thank you very much. That's all.
Thank you very much. Anyone else from the public? Seeing none, close to the public. Question that was brought up, does anybody know where these rocks came from?
Yes. They came from,
The ground.
Mark Dombrowski's daughter makes them.
Oh, are they for, what are
And they
they?
put them around all over town. Actually, Lisa knows better than I do. They put them around all over town. If you notice the other side, it says Mount Olive
Yeah,
Rocks.
Mount Olive Rocks. We were
And
just
you
wondering.
have to find them around town.
Oh, okay.
It's like a hide and seek.
Find the rock.
So I don't know. I don't know if these are supposed to be for each one of us. Yes.
Oh,
And then
okay.
we have to hide them someplace, right? We have to leave. Oh, we don't have to. Okay, they're ours to keep. But generally, if you get one, you have to hide it someplace. Like up at Turkey Brook Park, there's a bunch of them. It's like really cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, now we know.
It's just a really cool project that they have, and like I said, on the back it says Mount Olive Rocks.
Yeah, I saw that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Compensating.
Is that shocking? Wow.
Thank you. Does anyone have any council comments? Mr. Amianda?
None.
Mr. Ferrante?
Nothing tonight.
Mrs. Laybow?
Yes, I have two comments. First, I want to welcome Mr. Amianda back from your summer over there taking care of your school.
Thank you.
And did everything go well?
No, everything went well.
Oh, good. It's good to have you back. And also, I just want to make a shout out to Heather Darling, who came to our meeting earlier. She's one of our she's a freeholder candidate, and I thought that was really nice that she came up to help honor the police officers and the citizens. So, thank you.
Mr. Mania?
Joe, is there any update on the drinking water at the school?
Yeah, as far as, with the health department, they're doing everything they're doing everything they needed to do. It was really the pipes, I guess, that were the issue, not the water itself.
Right.
So they're doing what they have
So
to
they
do in
gotta replace the
conjunction with the
pipes?
state. Yeah, they're doing what they need to do to correct the situation, I know that. They've been on top of that one for a while now.
Yep.
I think one of the issues that happens is when they do the testing, they let the water sit for a long time, and that allows leaching of lead. Once it's up and running, the school system's in, the amount of lead is going to be, negligible. But I understand the concern, and I'm happy to know that I was informed that the Board of Ed is following all state regulations and federal and going beyond board.
I had a number of residents actually contact me with regard to that issue. I had a discussion with Brian Schechter from the Board of Education. He told me, number one, that there were no drinking water fountains which tested above the lead level. So that any of the other issues that actually arose were not involving the water fountains, which obviously is critical. He also told me that the lead issue is in part related to the fact that the DEP lowered the standard.
Yep.
By which it's whatever the lead standard is. So that under the old standard, ultimately, there was no issue in the schools. So now they have to address it, but it's not an immediate health concern to the residents in the school.
The reason why I asked, I had residents call me also.
Yeah, well, you can refer them to Brian Schechter or someone else on the Board of Education, which is
That's
what I
what I
did
did.
because, obviously, we're not in possession.
I said, we're not the Board of Ed.
Right. Mr. Stewart, anything?
Nothing tonight.
Mr. Roman?
I have nothing.
And I have nothing. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? None? Thank you all.